I think most people can agree that at the moment the world is a complete and utter mess, and it's not really looking like it's getting any better. It's only seemingly been getting worse for some time now. So the question is, what do we do in the context of that when all our dreams and wishes that we had seemingly look like they'll never be fulfilled, and just doing the daily grind of getting up, going to work, earning money, not having a significant other, and even trying to find a significant other is proving to be quite challenging for most people nowadays for various reasons. And the idea of home ownership, or having this, as it's often called, the American dream, the Australian dream, the British dream, whatever, this idea. And it's often said that it's a dream because it's all it is, it's all ever was a dream. It's not a dream to be obtained so much. Although in the past people have had those things, so I think it has been achievable at certain points of time for sure in the last century. So then, what is the purpose then of doing all the things that we do? How do we find this sense of fulfillment when these other things that we'd like to have are seemingly just unobtainable? And this again ties into some other things I've said in other videos, that it's not that it's wrong to have any of these desires at all. What do we do when we cannot fulfill those desires? Because all we do is really hurt ourselves. We only create this ongoing desire and tension within inside ourselves, and it really doesn't help us how we feel within. Because really, what we do want to, the only reason we really want to do anything is because of how it makes us feel inside. So if we say we want to get that girl or that guy or whatever it is, because we think it'll give us a certain feeling inside, and it probably will for a time. And the same with obtaining certain things, it gives us that feeling. But really what we're actually after is the feeling. So the problem is that anytime we obtain anything, the chances of it being lost is always there. So we can, often go about life saying, when I get all these things, then I'll feel a certain way and I'll feel the way I want to feel. Some people do feel that, some people don't still. And they're on this endless cycle of looking for something to feel this, well, not just feel, but it's to fill this void within. And again, there's nothing wrong with having, even the basics of having a home. Everybody should have that ability to have their own home. And then to have the idea of a family as well with children. Some people want children. And even if you don't, just having a life partner, significant other, can really add a lot of joy to our lives too. And that's a wonderful thing to have. But again, these things are eluding everyone quite a lot at the moment. So in the absence of being able to obtain these things, you really want to feel still good inside. And that's not an easy thing to do when our mind is still thinking about, well, I'll never have these things. And those are the things I'd really like to have, to feel a certain way. And what we really need to be doing, all of us, each and every one of us, is to say, well, how do I let that go, let go of these things as much as I possibly can? And feel a sense of freedom within that, because I've noticed even in my own life, the amount of tension things can bring within our lives when we say, I want to have this thing that I don't currently have and I've got to move towards it and to get it, to feel a certain way. It creates a lot of tension in the body, If you just said today, whatever it is you may want, I want a house, all these things. Again, not saying that it's wrong to have these things, but if you just said, you know what, it just seems so unobtainable at the moment, I'm just going to let it all go. And you just go, I'll let it all go. And even think, I don't want these things. If it comes, it's great. I just choose not to seek these things at all anymore. And I choose to seek a sense of peace within inside myself instead. And this is where certain practices such as meditation can be very, very helpful for this. And now it's not a panacea. It's not that it solves all the issues at all. I certainly see the value in it in many different ways. I approach life from a more of a spiritual point of view now, and I have for quite some time, for many years. And when I say that, I don't mean religious in any way whatsoever. And although, as I've mentioned before, sometimes people think I may be religious because of some of the terminologies that I use. But it's not that, it's looking at the deeper understanding of what a lot of these various texts are pointing at, what they're actually saying. But I don't like seeing, I'd like to see people feeling peaceful as much as they possibly can, and I don't like seeing people hurting within, struggling, and fighting with the world and fighting with themselves, ultimately. Because something I've realised in life is that to really master life is to master ourselves. And that's something we do from sorting out all the things going on with inside ourselves. And a lot of that is conditioning. And that comes from, yes, definitely growing up, but it's also how we even condition ourselves as adults. Teenagers do this too, but we need to take a lot more responsibility in our lives as adults to say, okay, what am I listening to? What am I watching? And if you look at the sort of content that you're absorbing most of, think about the message that's actually sending to you. There's a lot out there, it's not hard to look and find it, that's just constantly telling us how bad the world is. And there is a lot of bad things going on. And it makes people very fearful. And when you're in a state of fear, you can't think clearly. And this is why meditation as a practice can be very helpful, because when we get all stressed out and we get this fear response, we activate a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is the fight or flight response. And when we're in that, the higher or the more we're into that aspect, the more we're going to release these stress hormones, and we're going to, again, not be able to think so clearly. And you may be able to relate to it yourself at some point in your life, or seen it with other people who are almost hysterical. And you can't reason with people when they're like that. You can't reason with yourself. So it's really, the first step really is to find how to cultivate a life of peacefulness and doing things that are quite peaceful. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to shut off every single thing. Maybe you need to do that for a while. You can work that out for yourself. But I personally did that many years ago, where I did shut out the world for a period of time, and I didn't look at anything negative, and I felt a lot better for it, for sure. But also have gotten to a place in my life now where I can look at things quite objectively, and I'm not really touched by it. I'm not moved by it. I'm quite grounded in myself, and even with what's going on, all the terribleness, and because I've realised too that fear is not very helpful at all, for starters, and there's a lot of fears that we have, such as homelessness. Okay, and it's not a great place to be, and I've been there a number of times, and I've been at least fortunate that I wasn't living on the street, so I had my vehicle to live out of, but it's pretty tough still. And it wasn't just about living out of the vehicle. It was. I didn't have any people around me to support me in a physical sense at that time. Had one good friend still. I would communicate with a bit, but I didn't want to burden him with my troubles. And I had a lot of communication breakdown with loved ones, and that all fell apart for different reasons. And it was a very challenging time, emotionally, and also physically in different ways. When I was sleeping out of my four-wheel drive, I had to, because I had to get everything in there as much as I possibly could packed in. I had I used to have a platform in the back. Right at the back is like a wagon, four-wheel drive, fully enclosed, and I had to put my bed, and so there was this tiny little amount of room between the ceiling and the bed. So when you're lying on the bed, I used to think it was like a hand between like the nose and the ceiling. But actually, when I realised that's because I had my head slightly tilted. So when I actually put my head right back, my nose was literally touching the ceiling. Now, if you're claustrophobic, not great. And I didn't enjoy that at all. I had to jump in through the front seat and sort of wiggle in, and I couldn't move. You couldn't move your body, you couldn't turn. That was it, on your back all night. But also, I had left the cold area I was living in, the state that I was living in, which is kind of cold during winters, because I kind of knew, well, I should move up somewhere where it's warmer. So I drove over 3,000 kilometres, ended up in the tropics. And although I did arrive before winter, I did get here before winter, and I was not prepared for the humidity and the heat, I can tell you. And so being in this confined space, and had to have all the windows up because of all the insects and bugs and everything else, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with, and it felt like it was going to break me. So one thing I can say about that is that I used to laugh, like, because I would just think to myself, the number of things that were going on in my life at that time, and even just that experience of being in the four-wheel drive with all the heat and the humidity and just no windows open. And I couldn't sleep outside because of the crocodiles. There was just a lot of things. I remember just laying there one time, I just laughed and thought, this is quite the experience. It's quite intense in many ways. And I felt very hopeless in life. I had no idea where I was going in life. I did feel very lost. And I was sort of aimlessly moving around. I realised the importance of having some sort of sense of community, even if they're not people in your life in terms of a very deep level that you don't necessarily hang out the house, but even just getting a relationship with this person at the cafe, where you get a coffee or something like that each day, just friendliness. That's important, as small as it may be, and it helped me that period of time. And I realised a number of things about that sense of community. So I'm getting a little bit off maybe tangent, but it's still, I think, relevant to maybe what some people may be experiencing or afraid of experiencing. And I don't say this too when I was talking about the fear of homelessness, to be afraid of what I'm saying. The good side of that was that as I learned that I couldn't change experiences, but I could change how I looked at them. As I said, I had a sense of humour about things, and also I embraced aspects of just not having any control. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And rather than getting all upset about it, I just sort of understood that nothing in life's permanent. That situation, however long it may go for, it's not permanent. It will change because of my desire for it to change and seeking it. And as much as I may not have the energy always, or just even the mental capacity to really think very far ahead, it was a real survival mode, and that's okay. There was a time for that, but I knew it was within inside myself that I wouldn't stay there, and that the importance of learning not to give up on yourself or life in general, but not to have the expectations on life that things have to be a certain way either. That to seek joy and choose to be joyful no matter what's going on. Now that's easier said than done. However, it is possible. You can just affirm that every day when you wake up. I choose to be joyful. And then have that really thinking about that mindset. It is a mindset that no matter what happens, I'm not going to let things move my center in that regard. Now, sometimes that's going to happen. Things are going to hit you. And they're going to show you that, well, okay, I really got thrown off balance there a little bit. And that's fair enough. There are some pretty good reasons for that to happen in life. But really, I guess the core of what I'm getting at in this video is that finding a way within inside ourselves, each and every one of us, to say, I choose to feel a certain way, and I'm going to seek to feel that way despite what's going on around me, outside of me. Because again, it's not wrong to have things, but if we're setting ourselves up to say, I need to live in a certain location, certain people in my life, have certain things, then it's on shaky ground. It's not wrong, but to learn to become independent, truly independent within inside ourselves, to become, again, a master of life, unmovable by what happens, to find humour in life as much as we possibly can. But one thing I'll say is about this, though, that I didn't do it necessarily by myself. It really was through my spiritual practices, I'll say is one thing, but also my spiritual devotion. Now, I'll use the word God here. Use the word source or universe. Look, it really doesn't matter. Use whatever word feels right for you. But the thing is, I'm not talking about something outside of myself when I say God. I'm talking about within inside myself, within inside each and every one of us. There's a higher aspect of our mind. It's often referred to as Christ mind, or Krishna mind, Buddha mind. The name doesn't really matter. It's more about understanding that there is a higher aspect within inside ourselves, and you can find that. It is there. Each and every one of us has it within ourselves, inside ourselves, but also not having the expectations of how that may look like too. I've had a lot of experience with this over my life, and I know it to mean I feel the experience every day as I do meditate, as I've delved more and deeper into it. But the number one thing I did, well, before I say that, back in, I think it was the end of 2017, start of 2018, I think so, I started studying into metaphysics, actually as a degree into, well, metaphysical science. So from the spiritual aspect, to understand, these interesting phenomenons and what various texts are saying. And through that, I went back into reading, well, many texts, but one of them I went back to reading was the Bible, particularly the New Testament, because I thought, well, let's see what Jesus has got to say. I thought, let's see what's he actually saying here? Not what church is telling people. What is he actually communicating here? And it's quite basic, really, to follow his commandments, I guess, or his. I won't even use that word, perhaps commandments. You could. I know a lot of people, Christians, are like that, but what I'm really getting at here is more what is his great teachings, okay? And it was to seek first the kingdom of heaven, which is within, okay? That's it, up here. And to surrender your personal will to the will of God, again, within inside yourself. So, and again, God's everywhere, essentially everywhere, but there's that central point within us that we all have. And so we basically, by doing so, we're elevating our minds up into a higher aspect of mind, sort of Christ-mindedness, or a Krishna-mindedness, or a Buddha-mindedness. So that's the whole point, that we're elevating our mind from our lower aspect of mind, our ego mind, into a higher aspect of mind. And so when I started to do that, all things started to change. And I can certainly look back now in the progression of what's taken place. And I did go through some challenges too. It wasn't just all, rainbows and sunshine. However, I can also see why that needed to happen. And I had the strength always to get through these things. Even what I was talking about earlier when I was driving up to the tropics, that wasn't just from 0 to 100, because it was quite a challenging period of my life. However, for me, and I realised this in retrospect, there was all these little micro things that sort of led up to that. So, just little challenges. And the thing I realised about this was all very healing, actually, because, well, you may have heard the expression divine intervention. In a sense, that was a divine healing, and it was, in the sense that, like all of us, we all have some sort of wounding in some way, whatever it may be. And I had a lot more wounding probably than I realised internally. As much as I seemed to be just getting along with life okay, I didn't realise how much I needed to work on within. And so I was, over let's say since 2018 till now, 2025, there's been ever greater challenges. And each one of those has broken down the conditioning of my own mind, but not in a positive way, to let go of the garbage and the junk, but it's also strengthened me. Because one thing I realised too, that growing up with a single mother, and this, I don't think, generally speaking, single parent households are good, generally anyway. And it's not that my mother wasn't great or good or anything like that, it's not that, it's just that the lack of having a father figure around, or a male role model around, had a very big impact on me in different ways I wasn't even aware of. So these great challenges helped me to grow into and heal the wounded aspects of my masculine aspects of myself, to become a full man. And I can see that in retrospect, not always at the time, but in retrospect I can see, and I'm very grateful for the man that I am today. I really am. And I'm not saying it's all perfect now. Maybe there's some other things in there, I'm sure. Sometimes we realise those things mostly through relationships with others, girlfriends and boyfriends, husbands and wives, that particularly when they don't go well. And it's not about blaming anybody, but really the point of when people do things that hurt us, whether it's intentional or not, it's showing us a wounding within inside ourselves. And the thing is, if we do actually work on this and understand these aspects of ourselves that hurt, we can come to a place of actually being pretty free in life, to being pretty unbothered or unmoved by some things. Now, some things are much harsher than others, and betrayal and things like that really hurt quite a lot too, whatever that looks like. But one of the things that people often do with that too is they look inward and they go, "Oh, it's my fault," and look, sometimes we do have a place to play in things for sure, and we can look at that too and say, "Well, why did I do that?" But what I'm really getting at here is when other people's behaviour impacts us, it's learning to get to a place where it doesn't. To come to this point of mastering life by mastering ourselves. Now, I don't think there's a lot of people who have done that, but it's obtainable. We certainly are people who have, and we've got some great spiritual teachers who have done this. So basically what I'm getting at here too is that the spiritual aspect I'm talking about here with life is that, now as I say this, I want to make this clear, I certainly do not call myself a Christian, even though that I do fully accept that aspect of the Christ-mindedness, and I say that every single day, that I unite my mind with the mind of Christ. I let it happen. I seek that. I seek the will of God. I seek within me to do God's will through me each and every day, to share God's love and joy and healing and wisdom and creativity and virtues. I'm not saying I'm 100% virtuous. And all these wonderful attributes that I attribute to God's presence to live through me, I seek it. And that's the path I've mentioned in other videos through mysticism. So mysticism is to seek union with God, or people who talk about who have had union with God. And again, this is an inward thing. This is not something outwardly, and it's a personal thing. It's got nothing to do with religion, despite what some people may tell you or think it is. It's nothing. Look, there's a place for religion to some degree. It's very minor though, my view. It's often it holds people back more than anything, and it's but it's a starting place sometimes too. So I can't just totally dismiss it all. I mean, not everybody's ready for different levels of understanding, and it's like the kindergarten of the beginning of the spiritual path. And look, I don't mean to put people down when I say that, but it's just where we're all at in different levels of consciousness. And I've grown too. I mean, there's a lot of things I've still got to learn, I'm sure. That so it's not trying to put anyone down here, but I do see the problems with religion. So I do try to make that clear, because I do want people to hear what I'm saying and perhaps try this for themselves. And you do this thing wholeheartedly, so you open yourself truly up to really seek this experience. But I do. I fully surrender my personal will to the will of God within me. You say that too. And I accept that my mind is one with Christ. I choose it. I want it. However you want to affirm that, and do it really from the heart. And at first you might not really know what you're saying here. It might not seem like much. But you're really invoking something here to happen, to move from a lower state of mind to a higher state of mind. Again, nothing to do with the church. Mind you can still go to church and do these things, of course. But it's a personal experience, and it is very transformative. And although we do live in a material world and there are things to enjoy, our spiritual health, in a sense, is just as important, if not more so, to dedicate time to this within inside ourselves, because anybody I have seen who has truly embraced this in ways does have a sense of peace, even in the midst of all the chaos. There was something, I think, in the book of Psalms, the Old Testament. It says the peace that passes all understanding, and I know that too from my experience. I've had some pretty shocking things going on before. I feel like, how are you so calm? How are you so peaceful? And I know it doesn't just come from me. It doesn't. It's through truly getting out of that lower aspect of myself as much as possible, which is what I call the ego. Again, the word ego, it depends on who you ask. You've got to ask people, when they say ego, ask them, what do you really mean by that? And I give my definition that I see ego as the lowest aspect of our consciousness. And the more ego we're into, the worse things usually are for ourselves and others around us, because it's the ego that causes the troubles in life. It's not the higher aspect of mind. You know, the people starting wars aren't living in Christ consciousness. they're living in the lowest aspect of consciousness, the ego, and just all the terrible things that go with that. Now again, you may want to call that something else. That's okay. I'm just giving you my definition of that. So coming back to, I guess, the beginning of this video about the challenges of life, well, I really do think that there's nothing wrong with having these desires, but in this time period, and there are cycles of time, we're in a time now of great challenges, and I think take the pressure off yourself and perhaps let go of those things and not hold on so tightly. Say, look, I just choose to enjoy what I can in this day, and even the sense of making food can be really quite an enriching experience every single day. And not desiring beyond what you can, do right now in terms of financially at least, and letting go of a lot of these ideas and other people's ideas of who and what you are, and find the solidness within inside yourself. So you don't need to feel a sense that you need to validate yourself through obtaining certain things. Again, that's not always the case. And also to not be fearful about life. If things do perhaps go a little bit worse, you're still here, right? And you're still going to be here. And I've said this to people before in life who have talked about these great challenges in life. So look, you've had, and let's say talking about current days, and they're just really struggling and worried. And I said, look, when you look back at some of the other things you had in life, you got through it. You're still here. And the thing is too that often to find a sense of more fulfillment in our lives is about how can we help other people in some way. Now we don't have to go over the top, especially if we're struggling ourselves. Sometimes we're not going to be feeling up for that. But then we're just saying a nice hello to somebody, even at the shops, can brighten their day. Just little things. And sometimes, well, I won't get into that topic actually. It's a video in itself. But the little things that seem so little in life, they can be very significant. We don't know how that's going to impact one person's life that then may go on to impact many others. And ultimately, that's where we're going to find most fulfillment in life, is how we can help others in some way or another. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. I'm very open to any questions anybody wants to send me. You can do that through the message thing through YouTube, or just write something down in the comments if you'd like to. I'm not happy to share my thoughts on anything, but I make these videos hopefully saying something that may be helpful to you in some way in these challenging times. Again, my emphasis is always on this spiritual aspect of life and looking inwardly as much as possible throughout the day, even at least once per day. And also becoming very mindful again of the content and the things that we're eating, drinking, absorbing through music, through movies, through content online, and just be observant of it and just look at it objectively, saying, what is the message here? What's it sending to me? And am I in a strong enough point to be able to withstand a lot of this stuff, to not be taken down by it, to be thinking, oh, the world's a terrible place because, you just keep on seeing endless amounts of all these terrible things. And become very mindful of that within inside yourself. What am I consuming, and why am I consuming it? And that's a whole video in itself. Anyway, I really wish you all a really great day, and I really wish you all a great sense of joy in your hearts and your minds, and you're all blessed for your highest good, whatever that may look like for you. And then make you experience love every day inside you. And I said, at the very least, a sense of peace. All right, have a great day, everyone.